If I had the wings of a dove, wings that could take me where I want to go, I'd fly to the utmost, way out into space. Oh, no, 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 there is no hiding place. If I had the wings of a dove, wings that would take me where I want to go, I'd fly to the utmost, way out into space. Oh, no, 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 there is no hiding place. There is no hiding place. There is no hiding place. The central text for our sermon today comes from a wonderful poet, Mary Oliver. Some of us call her Saint Mary, and it's entitled "In Blackwater Woods." And she, in fact, she's passed on now, but she was a Unitarian Universalist in life, and but far more known for the beauty of her words. In Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this: the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To love what is mortal. To live in this world, we must be able to love what is mortal. We need to love what is mortal. Not try to love or want to love, but to need to love. Must be able to love what is mortal. The beauty for me in this statement is that love is not optional. It is mandatory. To live in this world, we must be able to love. It's not simply a nice thing to do. It's not a choice or an aspiration. It's a doing right out of our existence. We must. And that which we love, we must be able to love what is mortal, which means we need to love that which we know will eventually die. Forrest Church, the now deceased minister of All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, for over 30 years, he wrote, "Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die." Religion is the human response, is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. I really love that phrase, our human response the dual reality of being alive and having to die. But I find that I'm wanting to add to it. It's not just knowing that we're going to die, but knowing that which we love is also mortal. In a way, I think that feels even more potent than perhaps the risk of our own deaths and eventuality of our own deaths, being present to the inevitable death of who and what we love. None of us, at least to my knowledge, has of yet experienced our own deaths. But if you have, you can talk to me after the service. I'd be very curious about that. But all of us have experienced the deaths of those we love. We've all lost someone that we've loved: grandparents, parents, spouses, children, friends, mentors, cats, dogs, goldfish. My first great loss was my dog Sandy when I was 12 years old. And I loved that dog. And I so grieved when she died, cried my eyes out. About a year or so ago, I took part in putting down another much loved pet, Rosie. And truthfully, it doesn't get any easier. And every time I see someone talk about their death of their beloved dog or cat on social media, I think about with sadness the strong likelihood that I'll eventually witness the death of my current animal companion, Teddy. I'm also very much aware that my parents are in their late 70s and early 80s, and while both healthy, time is shorter than it has been. One of the great challenges, I think, of the pandemic was its theft of time. I didn't see my parents for well over a year during the pandemic, and only twice since the pandemic began. And there also are other kinds of mortality besides death. The family that felt short in their care for us, even to the extent of abuse. The romantic partnerships lost to breakup, perhaps to the level of betrayal. The friendships that fizzled away or blew up in conflict or crisis or were lost to distance or time. It's certainly tempting to say afterward that I'll never love again. The hurt is too much, the pain too great. One of the more touching moments at the end of the most recent version of A Star Is Born was Lady Gaga singing a song called I'll Never Love Again. Some of you may have seen that. And a beautiful, touching end. I'll never love again. And yet we do. We do. Because to love what is mortal is not optional. We are made to love. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. In another poem by Mary Oliver, she tells us you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And I love how visceral these two charges are: to hold it against your bones, to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. This is about drawing near. This is about the body. This is about connection. This is about hugs, real and metaphorical ones. Mary Oliver tells us we need to not love at a distance, but close up. We need to be present, intimate, welcoming, soft, warm. Love is not an intellectual exercise. It is of the flesh. It is of the heart. We need to allow ourselves to need. knowing your own life depends on it. We need that which we love, again, not optional. To live in this world, we must hold it against our bones, knowing our own life depends on it. There is a story by Roy Oswald, who wrote a small book called Running Through the Thistles. It's actually often used in congregational circles when a minister is transitioning out of a church, when they're leaving a church. And Oswald, in that book, he tells the story from when he was a boy, that the shortest way home from school was running through the fields, but occasionally he and his brothers would come upon these enormous thistle patches in these fields. And they'd run through these thistle patches full speed in bare feet across these 20-foot patches of prickly thistles, yelping in pain all the way through. Oswald claims this running through the thistles is how many of us say goodbye. Steeling ourselves, rushing through the pain of it, trying to get it over with as quickly as possible. Of course, when we perhaps would be much better served to take it slowly, gently, navigating our soft, vulnerable feet through the thorns. When everything we love is mortal to some degree, every moment is the process of a farewell. We could easily try to rush through life to get to the end, never allowing ourselves to take the time we need with what and who we love, or maybe even keeping a safe distance from the thistles to avoid the journey altogether. Truthfully, breaking out my Gen X credentials, as they say, every rose has its thorn. Drawing our love close means we do get scratched, especially as the inevitable moment emerges when we do have to say goodbye. As Oliver tells us, as everything I have ever learned in my life leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation. In seminary, in my mid-20s, I took a class with Buddhist teacher Joanna Macy. She led a ritual for us called Embracing Your Death. Everyone in the group in this exercise picks a partner who then represents your death, and likewise you theirs. So you're in this group with a whole bunch of people, and everybody is in the group picks a partner, and you represent your death for them, their death, and they represent your death. And the exercise begins with everyone walking around randomly throughout the room as if you were living your life. Eventually, though, your eyes would meet those of your partner as you're walking around. And in that instant, you begin the process of dying. Upon that first glance, you face your death, and then you slowly walk towards your partner until you reach each other and embrace or exchange handshakes or whatever that you do at that moment, which marks the official end of your life. Now, as I began this exercise, when I was doing it, I felt this drive to get it over with, to kind of go and find my death as quickly as possible and be done with it. To my great surprise, though, I discovered that my death didn't want to have anything to do with me. And every time I tried to seek her out, she raced off the other way. And I eventually I gave up the pursuit and just enjoyed the ride, letting my death decide when it was time for me to die. Finally, after a long while, when almost everyone else in the room had already died, my death and I accidentally caught each other's eyes. It was like that, total accident. Oh, there she is. Slowly, very slowly, we walked toward each other and then held each other in a gentle and tender and and it turns out quite long and intimate hug. Embraced by a death that would not have me. Nourished by a love that would not let me go. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To everything there is a season, a time to say goodbye. The hardest part. In my work experiencing homelessness, I see a lot of death. The average age of death for a chronically homeless person, long-term homelessness due to disabilities, people who've been homeless just for a long time, and often the stereotype of what we think of when we think of a person experiencing homelessness. Their average age of death is 47 years old. And I just turned 51 about a half a year ago. And it makes you think. At our last memorial service this past September, there were over 40 names, our longest list ever. That's one act where we choose to say goodbye, even memorializing a few who have no other family that remember them. We're actually preparing to do this year's in just about a month from now for those who passed in the last year. We're also in the midst of an epidemic of synthetic drugs in the work that I do. Drug-related overdose deaths crossed over 100,000 last year and became the leading cause of accidental deaths in the United States. But again, death isn't the only form of loss. Another loss I experience in my work is the loss of staff moving on. At over 12 years, I'm now the employee who has been at Beacon the longest. And I've seen a lot of staff come and go. By the nature of the work, we become close, but also burnout is not uncommon. So I've had to say goodbye to a lot of people. Every resignation hits the heart as close relationships change and shift. But of course, this all hits hardest when we have to say goodbye to someone we love dearly and closely, right up against our bones as they die. To someone we have loved as a mortal, beautiful, strong, fallible, fragile, wise. Someone we have held close to our bones, knowing our own life depends on them, because it has. To someone whose time has come to let go, because in order to live in this world, we must let them go. And as you've done these three things, I think it's important to remember that those you have lost have done the same with you. Perhaps clunkily, almost certainly imperfectly, but still, it's important to remember that those that we've released and said goodbye to, that we've loved, that they too, so many of them, have loved us knowing that we are mortal. So very mortal. They have held you close to their bones, knowing their own life is dependent on you. And they also, when the time came to let you go, they let you go too. I think back, the closest person in my life that I've lost is my grandma. This is her, Grandma Ann. And she died about 25 years ago now. I've lived about half my life without her. She is a person who constantly had lifesavers in her pocketbook, always had a chunky chocolate bar available. She would do these little things with us in our homes when the grandkids came over, where she'd hide silver dollars through the house, and we'd go and search them. I always forget that about being a kid, that these little things, these little trinkets, these little gifts matter so much. And as an adult, we may not feel that kind of passion for something small like that. For a little kid to get a little toy or a little chocolate bar or a little silver dollar can truly be just such an impactful thing for them and for us. She was astonishingly generous, consistently giving to a fault. And just was a great safe place for me in my life. And one of the things that I know about her is that as much as I held her close, she held me close. As much as I loved her, she loved me back, if not more. And that she would want me to know that, and to hold that, and to have that. And that's the beauty of the fullness of loving, is we also get love back. So as you think on these stories, as you think on those you've loved, but also those who have loved you, I invite us to be gentle with ourselves, to pay attention to all that we feel, to remember, to speak, to love, to hold close, and to let go. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. If I had the wings of a dove, wings that would take me where I want to go, I'd fly to the utmost, way out into space. Oh, no, 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 there is no hiding place. Shalom, amen, and blessed be.